welcome to another episode of Real Talk with GodOfKnockers. And as you may have seen from the title of this particular episode, yes, I'm going to tell you, I will admit, there is a big problem with Overwatch. Yes, there it is. There it is. It's out. I did it. Okay? Yes, this is coming from a guy who has played this game since private beta. Okay? This is coming from someone who plays it religiously on a daily basis. I at least take 1 hour out of my busy schedule, my busy life, my busy time to play this game, to help keep balance all the craziness that I have to deal with, and all the hyper activities of a creative mind. Yes, it's not easy up in this brain, I'll tell you that right now. And right off the bat, I can look at this game and say, yes, there is a problem, and it's a very common problem. It's one that has existed for ever since it came out, and that problem essentially is, it's mainly the players themselves. Alright, and it's not toxicity, it really isn't, because there really isn't a lot of toxic stuff in the game. It has died down considerably ever since the rep system was put in, and I'm really happy about that. People are behaving more when it comes to playing. Sometimes they'll still jump and take off, and I'll go and report them for it, and no big deal. It's not as big of an issue as it was back then. People are playing it nicer. They're saying they're being more cooperative, so we got that going for it. But even after that, there is a problem. Now recently, the good old-fashioned PTR for Overwatch, it got a major update. And that update is something that they've been working on in the world of Blizzard for quite some time. Workshop. With it, you can create your own game modes. Now, there are some people who are super crazy happy about this because they see it as a way to finally balance out the game from all of its issues, and then you can play it. But I disagree with those people. That's not what Workshop is about. The initial idea of Workshop is you can create your own custom game modes the way you want, which is a way of expanding the game itself. So instead of just having the usual game modes, you can add something else to it and add your own mechanic to it. And from what I've heard, that sounds really good. I actually I'm going to try and clear up some space on my hard drive so I can install the PTR and give this thing a go before it gets released, see what I'm getting into and what I got to do and learn. Do I need to learn another language, or what's the deal? Is it JavaScript? Because if it's JavaScript, I think I'm in like Flynn, because that's currently what I'm learning how to do right now for some other games that I'm planning on building. So that's a win for me. But that's something that I want to do. But ultimately, even though people are very happy about this, they say, yes, finally, you can balance out the characters and stuff, the character thing is not the real big issue. Everyone's upset about buffs and nerfs. Some characters have some buffs to them which seem a little unfair, and then there are some nerfs which seem also unfair. But the thing is, the actual problem is not the buffs and the nerfs. Like I said, it's the players. How is it the players' problem? Simple. The players forget that while the buffs and nerfs can help affect how the attacks of every single character functions and works, it's the skill set of the characters that establish on the whole if those buffs and nerfs work for you or against you. Okay? That's the thing. Everyone keeps focusing on the gains and the losses, and I'll admit, I've done that myself. When I heard that Reaper was getting a buff, that his life steal was going to be increased, I will admit I did get rather pissed. And there was when they increased Junkrat, when they changed his ultimate a bit, I did get upset over that, and I was like, that is so not balanced. But then I realized it's not really just about the buffs and the nerfs. There are people who can play these characters really well based on the mechanics that they have. So if a character does get buffed, they can still play it. If a character does get nerfed, they can find a way to play it. They just adjust to what it can do. That's what the practice versus AI is. That's what the practice is altogether. That's just what you do. They made some changes to D.Va. one of the major things, she got another ability, micro missiles. It took a while to understand how I could use micro missiles while I'm fighting in a game, in a match. It took a bit. So I went into practice. I learned how the micro missiles worked. I learned that I can fire the micro missiles without losing momentum and speed. I can look around, and wherever I'm aiming, that's where the missiles will go in a straight line. So I can easily launch myself up into the air and kind of dive bomb on some characters while using the micro missiles. All I have to do is just aim at the characters themselves, and that's a thing. So it's like a little Farah mimic, I guess. I can use my boosters and my micro missiles at the same time. And I can also use the micro missiles while I am firing my fusion cannons. I will still slow down because the fusion cannons, the D.Va slows down when they're being fired. For accuracy. That's a thing for D.Va, accuracy. And that type of shit. I can also use my defense matrix while using the micro missiles. There's a lot of combinations that I can do here. There's a lot of things that I can work with. Even when they nerfed the micro missiles, when they reduced the damage slightly, I was still able to work with stuff. When they make changes to some of the characters that I can play in the game, it really all depend ultimately on how I use those characteristics, and the skills therein. A character loses this ability or gains more power here, loses some power there. I have to adjust. And gamers who are up against these characters, they have to make adjustments too. They have to change how they approach the character and how they attack. That's the whole thing. When Blizzard makes these adjustments to characters, they don't do it because people were bitching and complaining. I know that there was that one about D.Va. She got a major nerf because they thought she was too overpowered. So they just flat out nerfed the bejesus out of her. And everyone complained about it, and they figured that from all those complaints that Blizzard did an about face and said, okay, it's time to put it back, and let's put it back the way it was, and work on it in this direction, and everyone was happy. But here's the thing: the complaint only worked because the nerf that they did, it didn't work. So that's the only time that Blizzard or Riot or Hi-Rez games will ever make adjustments to these playable characters. When the mechanic that they've added, when the buff or nerf either breaks the character in one direction or is too overpowered in another. And I know exactly what you're thinking. You're probably thinking of Mora. I know it. Okay, I get it. I understand. Her beam is too powerful. It travels too far a distance. Why don't you nerf the beam? Why don't you shorten it? Well, that's great, but maybe at the same time you should also be complaining about Zarya. Zarya's beam is just as long. And what about Roadhog? His beam is just as long. The kickback from his ultimate is just as annoying. What about Junkrat? His ultimate can travel anywhere it wants, as far as it wants, for still a limited duration. Yeah, the amount that your ultimate can be functioning, that's limited. But if you time it right, and if you know how to work it, you can have that travel from point A to point B and still get the job done. Right? So really, complaining about buffs and nerfs doesn't really help. What you have to do here, and this is the simplest solution, whenever you get something like this, adapt. Okay? That's all you have to do. There are some people who are burnt out over the game and have actually chosen to stop playing it because they just feel that the characters are so out of balance that there's just nothing you can do. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They're tired of having to deal with an unbalanced character. Blizzard is apparently not doing anything about it, so why should I play it? That's what they're thinking. And that's the wrong thing to think. Okay? That's the wrong way to approach this. The only time that the characters are out of balance, like I said before, is if the mechanic in question is either nerfed to a point where it doesn't work, or it's buffed to a point where it's just overpowering. A good example of this is Mercy. Her ultimate was changed to Valkyrie, and with Valkyrie, she can basically travel all over the place. She can instant heal. It was quite a thing, and if you had Mercy on your side of the team, you were in like Flynn. All you had to do was wait for her to get her ult, and she could heal people twice over. She could do it instantly. There was no delay. She could fly faster and higher. Her beam traveled to everyone, which it still does, and she was basically untouchable for X number of seconds. A very, very long time. It's not like how it is now. But they had to make adjustments to Mercy because she was too overpowered. That's the thing. The mechanics were good, and they were a great idea, but it was too overpowering, and it created an unfair advantage for one team, and a great advantage, no, and a great disadvantage to people who had to go against that team. Especially if you had someone who was not good at playing Mercy to begin with, that just made it worse, because it's like you've got this one character who's overpowered, you have no idea how to use her, and everyone's just going to be pissed. That's the thing. And so what did they do? They had to buff. They had to change the character's dynamics around. They didn't do this because people were complaining. They did it because the mechanic just wasn't working like it was supposed to. It wasn't balanced. Blizzard came up with that. They watched the games. They looked at how people were playing. They analyzed the forums. And then they played it themselves. Another thing that a lot of people forget about. Blizzard has its own team. They play this game. Even Jeff Kaplan, the director of the game, he plays Overwatch. So you've got people who are not only creating the stories and the characters and working on the lore and giving us all this wonderful stuff, but you also have people who are actively playing the game and seeing for themselves if something works or doesn't work. They go through painstaking hours to make sure that the characters are adjusted properly, that some are worked this way and some are worked that way, and they try to find that proper balance. That's normal. That's a good thing. Okay? They did that because the mechanics that they built in, the buffs and the nerfs, it broke the character in one way or another. That's why they make those adjustments. So when you see Workshop being put in, that's not so much as, okay, Blizzard doesn't want to do this anymore, they don't want to fix the characters, so we're going to create our own game mode, fix the characters our way, and that'll be that. No, that's not what that is. That's not what that is at all. This is a way of making new game modes which have specific characteristics in it. Because Blizzard, man, they could do this all day long. They could create all kinds of game modes for us to enjoy. They can do it till the cows come home. But they can't keep doing that. Sooner or later, they're going to have to move on to other stuff. There's stuff that they have to focus on. There's stuff that they're currently building. Workshop is a godsend because that gives the game longevity. Okay, you've got your basic game modes, and then you've got your user-created game modes. And when I look at it, the sky's the fucking limit on that. Alright? It's not about creating balance and trying to fix something that everyone thinks Blizzard isn't going to fix or has no intention of fixing. No, not even close. This is about giving life into the game. You know? This is about making it a lot more impressive. And seriously, from what I am hearing, if this is exactly what I think it is, this game could go on for years. I mean, the possibilities, the type of things you could create, the type of characters that you could use, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful, man. The game browser itself has predetermined conditions already, but with the Workshop, creating your own custom game modes, your specific character types, their HP, their health, all that shit, oh my god. That's like Game Browser Plus to me. Because instead of just picking a specific game mode, specific type of characters, and all the other stuff, you just create your own game mode. And then you can just build from there. It could be like this one specific game mode that does just this, that's it, and you don't have to set any parameters. It's just a thing that's set. You can buff and nerf whatever you want. You can change maps. You could have a 3 out of 5 or maybe a 7 out of 10. I don't know. But oh my god, this sounds amazeballs. But we should never consider it as a way of the developers being lazy and saying, you guys fix it. We should never consider it as a way of fixing the game, because that's not going to fly. This is all about this is all about making something new and fresh and exciting that the users themselves can play and make their very own thing, and that we can all enjoy. It's not laziness on Blizzard's part. It's not meant to be seen as something that Blizzard doesn't want to handle or do with anymore. And you shouldn't see it as a way of trying to balance anything. If you really want to take out these different buffs and nerfs for each character, you gotta improve your skill set. You gotta get the thought of the game is not balanced, Blizzard doesn't want to do this. You gotta get that mindset out of your head. And what you need to do is focus on just getting better at playing the characters, understanding how the buffs and nerfs work, and figuring out a better way to counter those buffs and those nerfs, to use it to your advantage and to put them at a disadvantage. It's more about getting you to use strategy and coming up with something new and creative, rather than just, got weapon, I know what works here, let's just do this. Because that type of idea is starting to change. And I can see that right now in the gameplay over the last year alone. It's starting to become more like, this is my character, this is how it works, and I'm just going to wing it and hope for the best, and everyone's going to be with me. No, now it's, this is that character. We know what it does and no longer does, and what it is capable of and no longer capable of. We know what its buffs and nerfs are, so we have to act accordingly. We got to think about counters. We got to think about switching. When's a good time to switch? We got to learn about places on the map. Can we flank it? Can we double team this character? It puts you more of a tactical mindset than just mindlessly shooting and being like, well, you can shoot like this and take that out, and that'll be the end of that, and then you can move on. No, it's becoming more detailed and more involved, and you just have to evolve with that. That's how you solve that problem. So the whole balancing thing, leave that to Blizzard. Let them do that. They'll figure it out. What you need to do is you need to just become more tactical in your strategy. That's all you gotta do. And try not to get too burned out over the game, alright? I know I play it an hour at a time, but that game is meant to be played in short, controlled bursts. It's not meant to be played all day long for most of us. Some people can do that. You know, there's nothing wrong with marathon gaming it, and that's fine. But when it comes to comp play, you gotta do it in parts, you know? You gotta do it a bit at a time. It's gotta be like, I'll play a comp game here, I'll play a comp game there, and most of the time you're just playing quick play. But just find what works for you, change your mindset, change your strategy, and just have fun. That, my friends, is how we can truly fix Overwatch. And to that one guy who got totally burnt out, hey, I'm sorry, dude. I know it sucks that you've been playing this game for a while, and now you're just burnt out over it. You don't want to play it anymore. But I'm going to tell you right now, should you ever decide to play it again, you're more than welcome to join me in a match. We can do arcade, and we can do quick play. We can avoid comp entirely. It's totally good, man. For reals. You know, I still have you on my list, and I hope I'm still on your list. So, you know, let's come back to it. Someday you will, and I'll be waiting for you, man. And that concludes the end of this episode. I want to thank you very much for coming in and having a listen. I was GodOfKnockers, and it was real nice talking to you. Laters. Put your hands up.